Monday, March 18th, 2019. Grosio Commerce Park Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Second item is roll call. Chairman Moran is excused. Ted Van Oss. Jacob Ternova is excused. Chris Manns.
Here.
Greg Hornsby.
Here.
And Daryl Filarski is excused. John Rathel here. Next item is any additions or deletions to the agenda. Hearing none, I'll accept the motion for approval. Moved by Treasurer Van Oss, seconded by Chris Manns. All in favor? Agenda approved. The next item is approval of minutes of the regular meeting dated February 19th, 1919. Treasurer Van Oss moved approval. Do I hear a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Manns. All in favor? So the minutes of the meeting February 19th, 1919 is approved. The next item is our financial report. We normally go through this up here at the commission board here, but Mike, I'm going to pass this along to you. We're moving into our fiscal year end, and I think we have just less than a month before that ends. So I just want you to go over a couple of the key things on this this budget of where we're at year to date and also last month, and then maybe comment on what we expect moving into the final few weeks. So Mike.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. For revenues, we budgeted $977,957. Our year-to-date revenue is $744,159, which makes up roughly 76% of our budget. On the expenditure side, we have the same budgeted $977,957. Our year-to-date encumbrances and expenditures are $835,559, making up roughly 85% of our budget. I was hoping for that to be a little bit closer, but we did have one large expense for insurance come out on this fiscal month. Moving forward, we have one more month left in this fiscal year until we close it out. As you can see, we budgeted for $200,000 into our retained earnings with all the capital improvement projects we were doing. We've completed about half of the capital improvement projects that we were doing, so roughly $100,000, between $100,000 and $120,000. And right now we're showing a gap of about $90,000 between revenues and expenditures. That's due to that insurance expense making that jump. For next month, the final month of the closeout, I'm projecting that we'll do similar to this month, another roughly $55,000 in revenue. Expenditures last year for the same month was $18,000. I talked to Finance Department. There's nothing else we're aware of that would cause anything to spike. So I'm forecasting the same amount, which would mean that we would clear another $37,000 to the good on the revenue side after expenses. So I'm showing that at the end of this fiscal year, we'll have expended $100,000 and be only having to go into retained earnings for $54,000 of that on the capital improvement projects. That's my best guess for the closeout for this next year now. Obviously have an update for you at the next meeting on the final closeout.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mike, last year when we did our budget, I know we budgeted with retained earnings based upon some of the projects that we had. What was that amount that we thought we were going to need? And then just confirm again what we actually are going to need, okay?
Sure. So we budgeted roughly $200,000 for several improvements, one being the tennis center roof, which we did not need on this year, but we budgeted anyways for the north section of the tennis center roof, a roof replacement in the Commerce Park on our Building 75, a fuel farm repair of the secondary retention wall, and then a coating on a portion of our T-hanger roofs, which we also did not complete. So we've completed about half of the budgeted capital improvements, equating to about $100,000. So we're going to roll some of that, as you'll see here soon, into my next year's budget proposal. We'll roll some of those improvements into the future budget. So we expensed $100,000 for. I guess I should say we expensed $100,000 of the budgeted amount to go into our retained earnings. I'm guessing that we're going to drop that down to having to only go into retained earnings for $54,000 after the budgeted $100,000. So we are better than we budgeted for or anticipated.
So then we budgeted for capital improvements of $200,000.
Right.
We did half of the improvements we thought
Roughly.
last year, and we're only going to need $54,000 out of the capital, out of the retained earnings to pay for those, right?
Correct. That's what I'm forecasting for your closeout.
And when we look at that from a budget standpoint, the money is the $54,000 that we actually did those improvements with, which is the reason why we have our retained earnings, right? So we can do.
Correct.
I mean, it's monies that we have there to be able to take care of things, which we do, and you did a great job last year of actually getting half of the projects that we wanted to get done at really half the cost we thought it was going to get done.
Correct. And if I can, the only other note I have on that, I do expect a potential slight boost. It may fall onto next calendar or next fiscal year by the time we get that back. With our Runway 422 closeout project, as we close it out, we had to prepay roughly $8,000 to do flight checks. So when the runway is complete with the construction, they fly a King Air in, and there's a large expense to that of roughly $8,000 for a couple of flight checks. We get reimbursed. We had to prepay that, and we get reimbursed back from the state once that project finally closes out, which I'm hoping to have done here on the next 2 weeks. So it may fall on next calendar or next fiscal year, but we are going to get a slight credit back from that.
Well, it'd be good if you can get that for this year and bring that into the revenue side, if we can get that done. One last comment that I want to make, if we look at our retained earnings, not including our fuel inventory, which is about $32,000 of fuel inventory that we have in our tank that we're going to sell, our retained earnings as of February 28th is $613,216.24. Is there any questions from Mike on our financials? Okay, hearing none. Do we actually move support on? Okay, so I hear a motion to approve the financial report. Moved by Mr. Mann, supported by Treasurer Van Oss. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so let's get into our budget review for this next fiscal year that we start February 1st. So, Mike, I want to turn it over to you, and if you can go over that with us, that'd be great.
Similar presentation that I give every year. Obviously, updated numbers and capital improvement project list. So this is for our 19-20 fiscal year proposed budget. Brief overview of the budget. It does show a loan expense for the build out of Building 63, which we've had in process, and I have an update for you on here in a little bit. It does not anticipate the revenue side of that, just the proposed loan expense. So that's why you'll see the expenses are higher compared to the revenues. I did budget in there the revenue from Building 63 as a storage operation until we do the build out. It anticipates the airport operating the FBO for another fiscal year. Anticipates no rental increases on the T-hangars or our community hangars. And just a note I make every year, every lease we have is varied. Most leases are annually increased with CPI. Some are pre-negotiated, 3%, 4%, whatever the negotiation goes. But a majority of our leases are based on CPI, which was 2.36% this year. That was the increase for the area. So you'll see kind of all of those revenues blended in. Expenses are all budgeted based upon previous year trends and year-to-date actuals. Employee costs and benefits are provided by our county department, and I just plugged those right in. So all of our retirement costs salaries, medical, health insurance, all that stuff gets plugged in by the accounting department. And feel free to stop me anywhere along the way if you have any questions. Again, we're the airport, Commerce Park, and Fuel Farm were broken up into 3 revenue and cost centers. That's how our budget's been run for, I think, the last 12 or 15 years. So you'll see here the overall percentages on the right of increase and decrease. The decrease in revenue from previous year there that you see is because there's less retained earnings being pulled forward. So that's why you're seeing a drop in the revenue. The expense side down slightly because we're not forecasting $200,000 of expenses to go out the door. So that's why you're kind of seeing both go down.
Mike, excuse me, on our screen, that the total of that page.
Yeah.
What is the percentage of decrease of
The overall budget?
of just the revenues on that page right there?
It shows the airfield revenue going down 12.04%, Commerce Park 1020.
And what's the last column where it says page total?
Page totals. So this fiscal year was budgeted $977,957. Next year for revenue and expenditures, I'm budgeting $887,034. It's roughly down 9.3%.
That's the number we can see.
Yep.
So the 887 is our balanced number of revenues and expense.
Correct.
And that is with the,
Roughly $100,000 pulled from retained earnings.
but it's also with the monies for the project, the new
Correct.
building project.
Correct. Yep. That's the loan expense for the build-out project and the capital improvements that I have planned for this year.
But I think it's important for this, because last year we had a budget that was $100,000 over than what we are proposing this month, right? And to get to that, we used $200,000 of our retained earnings. We only used a quarter of that. This year, we filter into our budget the build-out of our projects that we're going to go over. And we lowered the budget to $887,000 and only using $100,000 of our retained earnings.
Right.
That's with the expense side of the cost of the build-out, but there's no revenue from new rents, right?
Right.
Okay.
This is just, I throw some graphs in there to hit you with of what the revenues and expenditures look like from each account. You can see this year the airport's got some more, it's a little heavier on the capital improvement side, and everything's split on a percentage basis. So health insurance for the staff is split across all 3 accounts into percentages and all that. Fuel farm expenses, this is all, again, plug and play from accounting department in terms of salaries, health insurance, retirement. You'll see some big percentage changes there, but in reality it's $100, so that's why you see some of the crazy swings. But everything else there is fairly standard. The fuel farm account really is a kind of a cash in, cash out account. We have to collect a certain amount of taxes. There's, I think, 6 or 7 different taxes we collect on a gallon of fuel that we sell, and then we prepay some of those to the state and then expense others out. So, it really, with the flow fees, it basically pays for the maintenance on the fuel farm, and we receive a very small profit on it, but it's pretty much cash in, cash out. As revenues go up, expenses go up, and it stays even. Fuel farm expenses continued, so you'll see we're budgeting to purchase $130,000 this year of combined Jet A and 100 octane, 100 low lead av fuel. You can see the insurance and bonds there. The maintenance in the building, we normally budget $5,000. You can see that's way down 83%. We elected to do the we had to do the secondary retention wall in the fuel farm this year, so that was at $26,000 coming out that you see. So that's been repaired. This is a historical graph going back to 2014 to current, showing you you can see the margins there on revenues and expenditures, and as prices fluctuate on fuel and or flow goes up, you can kind of see that the expenses stay the same. Commerce Park revenues, we're showing up slightly. You can see a 5.65% increase. Again, those are blended. Some are new tenants added to the Commerce Park, that being Island Roots and the 1 yard down on Grow Road. And the rest of that is blended rent increases. So, the 2.36% across the board that we're seeing. And then rent income buildings, very stable again, 4.32%. We assume that we're getting all the same tenants and revenues with the slight increases. So there you can see the bottom there, prior year resources, 53,442 being pulled forward. That's half. I split the prior year resources between the airport and the Commerce Park. So that's the half you're seeing of that $100,000 that we discussed. You can see the 18 and 19 prior year was $105,000. So that's where we're splitting those two apart. So you can see the difference between the 2 years. Commerce Park expenses. Again, some minor adjustments there. The health insurance came down a little bit, but then got reapplied in a different location. Maintenance and repairs is all the same stuff. Skip ahead. Everything else here is the same. We look at trends for the last 5 years in electrical, natural gas, and water bills, and budget accordingly for that. Now we go into 931,000, which is maintenance buildings in the Commerce Park. Again, like last year, we didn't elect to do the tennis center roof section replacement. We're going to budget that again for the north side this year. That's the flat roof. The dome roof is, I think, still got some life left in it. Where we have more issues is the snow weight sitting on the flat roof seems to do some more wear and tear. That $30,000 is based on what it costs us to do the southern section, so they're very similar sizes. So I budgeted the same. We'll just do that as as needed. Here's Commerce Park, revenues and expenditures over the last, I think I went back there to 13-14, blue being the revenue. So you can see, a good portion of the revenue we make is coming from the Commerce Park when you look at how much it's clearing expenses. Airfield side of revenue, again, everything up slightly. The T hangars were down slightly. We've got a few openings right now, and then we have a couple tenants that prepaid the whole year, and that kind of skewed the number depending on where it falls. But we are down a few units right now in T hangars. The office is way up this year. As you guys are well aware from the last 4 or 5 commission meetings we've been approving about one office lease per meeting. So that's where you're seeing that difference of $15,000 in Hangar 2 offices. So we still have vacancy over there if anyone's looking for office space, but it is starting to fill up more. So that's good, probably a good sign for the economy too. I'm noticing a lot more people wanting a small office away from home who work from home for a meeting space or just a quiet space to work. So that's where you see that. And then obviously the previous year resources, that's where you see the other $53,000 coming out to complete that $100,000. And again, 18-19, you'll see the difference of $100,000. So the page total on that one for the budget line is $378,176, or 0.06% different. I'm sorry, that number is not right when you look at the decrease in miscellaneous income, or the decrease in prior year resources. I don't think that number accommodated for that, so you can excuse that. One other note on this page, the 694 number, miscellaneous income. Again, I budgeted $8,000. That number is traditionally higher, but I err on the side of caution with that. This past year we did about $24,000 in it. The previous year we did $32,000. The year before that it was roughly $30,000. So we seem to be in that ballpark, but $8,000 is kind of like the guaranteed events we have every year and the revenue we generate off that. So that's kind of what I call our cash account for help balance the budget at the end of the year. And it can be variable. I mean, the one year we had a movie, we did $20,000 in just the movie shoot. If I have a heavy year of photo shoots, we can do $30,000 or $40,000. So we're going to try to get with the Michigan Film Association and continue to promote what we're already doing. Airfield expenses, you'll see the salaries part-time up slightly. That's because we hired Angela as our marketing coordinator for the airport part-time, so you'll see some costs there, and then we moved a little bit of the salaries for the summer help from Commerce Park into Airfield. You'll see the health insurance down slightly. We redid our program this year, and there's some cost savings there. Everything else is pretty standard year to year. Airfield expenses, not too much to note on this page. Electrical and natural gas, again, looking at prior year resources. The 828 account, the administrative expenses, that's what we give to the township. The 10% was added in there last fiscal year's budget. So that's just based on percentage of revenue plus employee costs in the finance department. Final page of airfield expenses. Maintenance runway, same thing. We do have funding left over from MDOT's contract for emergency repairs. So if we have a blow up on 1735 or one of our taxiways, which we do have one section right now that's going to need to get repaired when the asphalt plants get reopened, we can tap into that at 5% share. So that's obviously a great asset to have. But again, they've notified us that 50, or I think it's 45,000 that's in there is the last 45,000 last dollars available to us for emergency repairs. So we're going to try to be wise with spending that and make sure it goes to stuff that truly needs to get fixed. The other thing you'll see on this page is maintenance for the T-hangers. That's where we rolled that. We did the fuel farm project and the roof replacement on Building 75 in the Commerce Park at the same time. So it was a lot of engineering, bidding, and construction stuff going on. I just didn't handle the load of going out for the roof coating. It wasn't an urgent matter, I would say. It had another year, so we rolled it into this year's budget. So that's where you see that $42,000 expense coming out on Hangar C row for the corroded roofs. And let's see, the other thing you'll see in here, under construction costs, these are really our two MDOT projects for this fiscal year. The apron joint resealing is on your agenda tonight. That's for the design and construction portion of it. We have negotiated a grant with MDOT and FAA for about $250,000 to reseal the entire airport ramp. I've been arguing with them for several years because they do joint sealing programs for asphalt but have never done one for concrete. So they are allowing us to give us one for the concrete here on the ramp. So again, that's where you're seeing a roughly $15,000 expense on our end, but we're going to get $250,000 to $300,000 of work. So that's a good grant to go after. The other one is the Taxiway A reconstruction we talked about. So we redid 422. The Taxiway A reconstruction, this is just the design portion. The construction would take place the following year if we have the funds available to do it. So the $5,000 would fund the designing of the reconstruction of that part of the taxiway, and that goes from Charlie to 422, our new runway. And then the only other equipment purchases, we were going to do this last season. We've held off on it, is a new trim mower for $12,000. That pricing we got on a government contract right here out of Sells. So that's pretty much your guaranteed low price on a government contract. We will look for some used stuff and see if there's a deal, but I've found that with the government pricing, it's pretty close to. We saw some used ones for $10,000, so for $2,000, I'd rather just purchase a new machine when you're looking at some of that, unless there's a really low hour machine. So we'll keep an eye out for both options and see what lines up. You'll see the equipment purchases is down 66%. That's because this fiscal year we purchased a new F-150 for our airport maintenance staff. And then here, the last page of the airfield expenses, where you're seeing that principal payment for the loan we've been discussing in the budget. So you'll see it broken out into the principal and the mortgage expense between two different accounts. You can see the prior year was, $88,000. And then that was the bond that matured that we were carrying there for about 20 years. So that was $88,000. The payment on the new loan, if we were to get it, we're projecting to be about $76,000. There's revenue and expenses over the last few years for the airport. Questions, comments? Want me to go back over anything?
Okay, thank you, Mike. Does anybody have any questions for Mike regarding our budget? Any comments?
I think you did a good job. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, good job on the budget, Mike. I do want to just make this comment again that this budget does have a build-out of 8 brand-new units of roughly 2,000 square foot each. It has the build-out cost, but no revenue projections at all. So it's important to know that, because we're going to rent those out, and then that revenue will come into our budget next year.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess we have a resolution that reads, the Grosseal Commerce Park Commission hereby adopts a resolution of support for the proposed Airfield Commerce Park budget for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Van Oss, support by Mr. Mans. All in favor? Aye, that passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda, continuing on with the manager's report. Mike, you want to just briefly and quickly, because we have a lease update, which I don't know if we want to talk about the lease with Building 63 subdivide, which I just mentioned. This is our 8 new units, and then a potential other tenant coming in as well. So, Mike?
Yep, thank you. Just wanted to do a brief update here. The Building 63 subdivide is moving forward with the architect, Sarnacki & Associates, who we're using. They are preparing the construction drawings to go out for bid, and obviously the bid documents as well. So they're prepping for that. I'll update the commission when we are going to go out for bids. We will need to get some approvals on that. So hopefully that'll move forward quickly. And as you know, also in addition to the 8 units, we have been negotiating with Valio for a lease in the other portion of the building. We started at 10,000 square feet. We have finally settled. We've kind of flip-flopped back and forth on a couple different options, up to 40,000 square feet in the other warehouse. They were looking for adding an additional inventory arm of the business that would do warehousing storage. That facility didn't work for 2 reasons. It was mainly the ceiling height was only good in the center of the building, not through the entirety for the height they needed. And there were some concerns with the inventory business because they haul heavier trucks with the bridge. So we're sticking with the initial interest group, which is their wiper division. We've settled on 20,000 square feet. The rates and all that are pre-negotiated. So the step we're at now is settling the final lease. Terms and conditions, I've started working with our township attorney on that. He has sent me a draft I'm reviewing now. The second part of the deal is we've given a CAD drawing of the building to Valio, and as I've stated previously, it's going to be a build-to-suit type setup. So we're waiting for them to come back with a list of improvements they desire and the drawings and locations of all that, so we can start working with Sarnacki again to get an estimate. The thought is, with all these moving parts, we're going to try to, they're hoping to get me their list of requirements this week. And then if all goes well, I'd like to bid everything together to kind of share some costs on that for the construction drawings and everything there. They'll be responsible for the expense of the construction drawings and bids on their end. We'll do some cost sharing there, but that's where we're at with the lease. So I should have some more updates for the commission soon on the build-out stuff.
Okay, I probably would recommend that, since this is ongoing, that if you guys have any questions and some of the specifics, talk to Mike, and then once we have this, we can bring it forward, and then, talk about all the things here at the meeting. But if anyone has any other questions for Mike regarding that? No? Everyone good? Okay. All right, Mike, then why don't you just, we talked about the joint ceiling project, which is the next, oh, no, that's not. All right. 1735.
Update?
Yes, the update on our improvement justification.
Just a brief update. If you recall, I think it was our prior 2 meetings ago, we approved, or maybe it was a prior meeting, we approved a small expense for our airport engineer, CNS, to put together a submittal to give to the FAA on trying to justify runway 1735 to be qualified for funding for replacement. This is the memo back from them. I just wanted to give you guys a copy of it. It's in draft form. When you get some time, read it and provide any feedback you want. It has not gone in front of the Airport Advisory Committee yet. We are trying to set up a meeting now for them to review this and provide their comments. So I just wanted to get it in front of you now and let you know that the consultant has completed it. And I hope to come back next meeting with comments from the Airport Advisory Committee moving forward before we submit this to the FAA.
Mike, I forget exactly how much we approved, like $3,000 or something.
Correct. It was under 3,000, but we did, the cost was lower, but we left some room for budget in there in case moving forward, A, we need them to attend a meeting with the advisory committee, and B, if we have ongoing negotiations with the FAA, we don't want to come back to you for budget approval.
So this has all been budgeted and
Correct.
some paid already, so, okay. All right, any questions for Mike on that? All right, hearing none, we're going to go into an action item B, because we already did the action item on budget support. Mike talked about this next project at our budget presentation. Yeah, Mike, your resolution date is not right on the.
I'm sorry, yep, top right, we'll update that.
Okay, so based upon recommendation by the Airfield Commerce Park Manager, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby recommends that the Groseal Township Board execute contract FM 82-05-C61 apron joint ceiling design project with the Michigan Department of Transportation. The cost of the contract is $26,074, with the local airport share being $1,303.
What? I'll make the motion.
Moved by Treasurer Van Oss, supported by Mr. Mann. So this is just a cost sharing. Our cost to do this is $1,303. Does anybody have any questions other than what Mike explained to us in the budget presentation?
Mr. Vice Chair, I can make a few more comments that this is just the design portion of the project. The dollar amount, I don't need authorization to spend $1,303, but because it's a contract with MDOT Aeronautics, they need a certified approval by the township board to execute the contract. So that's why we have to go through this process. Just a reminder.
So the board will actually approve this in 2 phases?
Correct.
Okay. Got that, Ted? All right, motion made, all in support. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item is our subcommittee report. There is none. Chairman's report. Chairman Moran is not here. Public comment. There is no public here today. So I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion made of moving forward the adjournment by Mr. Mann, supported by Treasurer Van Oss. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good job, guys.
There you go.